Welcome to the Spirituality What? Podcast, where we explore the mysteries, joys, and challenges of being spiritual beings navigating our unpredictable human experience we call life here on planet Earth. I'm your friendly guide, Rebecca, ready to jump into our adventure of the day. Hello, Spirituality What listeners, and welcome back to another awesome episode about being spiritual beings in human bodies here on planet Earth. Today, I am excited for part one of another two-part episode with my good friend, Hronn from Denmark. Hronn is a Rasa Yoga-led teacher trainer located in Copenhagen, Denmark, certified with the Yoga Alliance, a certified Foundation Training Instructor for level 1, has over 10,000 hours of yoga teaching experience. She's a certified role model method practitioner, has tons of other education and certifications, and holds a special place in my heart. Hronn and I met in 2014, I think, when I moved to Copenhagen, Denmark for a little while and started a yoga practice. I met Hronn through some people at work. She was a yoga teacher very close to where I was living. And so it was interesting as we prepared for this, we realized we'd known each other for almost 10 years, which was kind of crazy. But Hronn and I have stayed connected over the years. I've been to a yoga retreat that Hronn has done in Iceland, and I took my mom to one in Goa, India, and really like a lot of the work and that she's done, and she really helped get me into yoga as a practice and sort of find what worked for me. So I'm really excited to share her with you guys today. And we're going to talk a little bit about her background and a story that I didn't know about, kind of the universal signs that led her towards being a yoga teacher. We're going to talk about different aspects that make up yoga, the movement or the asana, the breathing, the pranayama, the mind, the meditation. And we're really going to get a history and kind of a basic on what is Rasa Yoga, which is what she teaches now, which is based on tantric philosophy. And we're going to learn a little bit about other types of yoga as well. And because Hronn is from Denmark, and for all those Danish listeners out there, jeg taler kun lidt dansk, okay? So the podcast is going to be in English. It's not going to be in Danish this time. But Hronn does speak Danish. She speaks lots of languages. So if you need anything, you can reach out to her. And let's get this thing started. All right. Welcome back to the Spirituality What podcast. I am here this great day with Hronn. And we're going to just kind of jump right in. So Hronn, if you want to give an introduction of yourself.
Yes, thank you, Rebecca. I'm very honored to be here with you. It feels like a kind of a big thing.
It does. It is a big thing. It is a big thing.
It is a big thing. Yeah. So my name is Hrönn, and I originally I'm from Iceland, but I've lived in Denmark like the last almost 30 years, and I have taught yoga since 2011, and but my journey with yoga actually started a long time before that, when I was in my 20s with meditation. So meditation was kind of my entry into the world of the practices of yoga, and it has always been meditation is what kind of anchors me into the practice. So if I need to prioritize my time, I always choose meditation before asana.
Okay.
Because that's really what helps me to anchor myself into being, and into the kind of deeper center that can carry me through the day. And since I started the asana practice like 2006, 2005, I quickly became very interested in teaching, and was encouraged by one of my first teachers to teach. And so only kind of a year or two after it was the same year as I finished my first teacher training, I started teaching. And that has simply been evolving. And during the time where I took my teacher training, the first one, I was also just finished a PhD in health informatics, which was kind of a crazy situation because my thesis was actually denied. So
oh my gosh.
Exactly, it's like, what? And I have never in my life done something with so much effort and put so much energy into it and not succeed.
Wow.
So I was like, what is going on? What is happening? So this kind of brought me into a huge existential crisis, because I thought I was going to be a university professor. That was kind of what I had lined up for myself. And I got 6 months to rewrite the whole thing. And I really tried, because, my ego, which I guess we'll talk about a little bit later, I think we'll return to it, was like, you need to do this. I mean, you cannot just throw all of this out of window with all the work you put into it. You have to finish this. And but yeah, at the same time, I'm doing this yoga teacher training, and I'm meditating. And at some point, I have this very clear voice in my meditation, which happens quite often when I am in deep kind of, if I'm in a situation where I need to make a decision.
Yep.
It often arises from something very much more deeper than my cognitive mind.
Absolutely.
So this voice just comes over and says, let it go. And
wow.
I was like super surprised. First, I was like asking myself, is that really possible? I mean, and then, why not? The question was like, why not? And it took me a little time to contemplate, and to be with it, sit with this question of, okay, what if I let it go? And but ultimately, I really could just feel that was what I needed to do. So I decided I'm going to let it go. And in a couple of years, I was teaching yoga full time. I had dropped the teaching at the university. I dropped my consultancy job, and I was just like, okay, this is my dharma.
Yeah, I did not know that story. That is so cool. It's like the universe was like, you better not do this. You better go teach yoga.
Exactly, because I figured out during the PhD that I really love to teach, and but there was something not right. I mean, I always could feel like I didn't really fit in, and the mind of the academia is always to find as many errors as possible.
Totally.
Look at the problems. What is not working? And that is just so against how I, just naturally are inclined.
I literally
like
cannot even imagine that with you. Like, I'm hearing this story and my brain is literally like, none of this meshes. Like, this is not her. Like, I can't believe this. It's so crazy.
Exactly. So because I really like to look at what is, and that's kind of the center of my spirituality, if you like, to look at the good first.
Yeah.
That is just how I see the world.
Yeah.
And I really believe that human beings are innately good, but then stuff happens to us, and we are socialized, and we are brought up in difficult environments, and we meet people that have not had the resources to work with themselves, all of that, and then we turn out to be assholes.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
We don't start that way. I believe you. I believe you.
No, nobody starts that way. And so as I let go of that ambition, and I also could recognize, which I think is important to mention in this process, that when I really started to question, why am I doing this PhD? Did I really want to put myself through 6 more months of work? And then I realized that a lot of what I was, well, maybe not all of it, but a lot of it was focused on, or that longing for a title, the PhD title. Just my mind was like, okay, if you have a PhD, you're so cool, and you have a status, and people will respect you. I mean, which is just
It's just very ego-based, unfortunately. Yeah.
It's super ego-based. It is. And, you can earn respect and people can like you without PhDs.
I'm like, I have all of those things for you. And, you definitely didn't need a PhD in my mind, but it's very interesting what we're sort of conditioned towards. Absolutely.
It is. And I think that, having my practice, my meditation, my yoga, the asana practice, all the work that I do through that also made it easier for me to actually let go of this, because I know people who are doing their PhD on year number 10 and they have no money because what is it called? You have like a sponsor or like a funding for some time. Yeah, you're funded for 3, 4, maybe maximum 5 years. And then you just have to figure out how you're going to do it on your own, right? And it's just so devastating to see this. That and is. Very, very interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely not a world that I considered for about a half a second, getting 2 different master's degrees. And then I was like, no, I don't know about that. Now that I've, been out of school for a while, I'm like, going back to school, I don't think I can do that. So I hear you. So the question that I ask everybody on this podcast that I'm excited to ask you is, what does spirituality mean to you?
Yeah. So if I think about what it means, it definitely means that the remembrance that there is something much greater than me, and that I am a part of this greater, the highest. It is a sense of belonging. It's of being a part of something that matters. So that my individual life has significant importance to other beings, even though I don't know them, even though I'm not directly related to them, but that the way I conduct my life and the way I meet other beings, it has a meaning. And I like to remember in the mundane things, in the doing the laundry, in the taking the dog for a walk, all of these just very basic day-to-day things that the divine or the highest is just as much present there as it is in my meditation, as it in sacred spaces like a temple, or that it's just everywhere. And the ability for us to connect to that energy, sometimes we can call it grace, or there are so many different names, and I actually find it kind of difficult to name it with a name, because for me it's not God, but it's more, it's kind of a flow. There's something just so much alive. And in nature, feeling it when we are walking in nature and just standing by a tree, that there is so much aliveness, even though for the bare eye and the ego might say, no, this is just a tree.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. I'm with you on that.
Yeah. And there's just that in that, I don't think about being spiritual. I think that's just, something that I am. And, but also that in that beingness, to connect to my heart consciously, especially when I'm very stuck in my mind. And that is something that really helps me to connect to that highest energy.
Yes, connection. You use the word connection a bunch. When I thought about this, the very, very first episode of the podcast outside of the introduction is me talking about what I think spirituality is. And I will say that I never know what people are going to say. I tell people, right, as a prep for this podcast, what the question is, but I don't ask for people's answers. And so I didn't know what Hronn was going to say. And my spirituality definition is genuine connection in general with
absolutely.
anything, you know, with yourself, with your
Yeah.
body,
Yeah.
with your spirit,
Yeah.
with the dog that you're walking on the side of the street, kind of whatever it is.
Yeah.
And Hronn, your use of sort of the connection and the spirituality in the mundane, that's exactly what this podcast is about, right? So how do we find that? And this particular episode, right, is going to be about yoga and your experience with yoga as both a practitioner and a teacher, a retreat leader, but someone who just knows yoga. But as Hronn said, and I fully believe, you get it everywhere, literally anything that you're doing. And that's where I was really, when I was musing about my definition, I was like, you can connect. If you just take a moment to really connect, you can connect to anything, anywhere. And that's
absolutely.
so cool. So let's jump into the yoga part a little bit. So what is the connection for you between spirituality and your yoga practice, or as a teacher, what you do?
Yeah. I think that because I came to the yoga practice through meditation, it has always been like an innate part of it. Because in meditation, there's this ability to connect again and to be present. Presence is a huge thing to learn to be present with whatever is going on inside me. You know, that I don't control literally anything. That's a huge recognition or kind of acknowledgement that you think the mind thinks if I just can control this and this and this, everything will be so great and my life will be amazing. But then boom, life happens and you realize that no, okay, you can't control anything. But through the meditation, what I've come to realize is that what I can control is my connection, my engagement with the stuff that's going on.
Absolutely.
And so that's and I can control that. I can choose to be angry, and I can choose to be pissed off, or I can choose to be loving and all of that. But it takes a recognition that I have that choice, and bringing that into the physical practice, which I think that yoga very often becomes like there's like a automatic connection from yoga movement.
Yes.
Yoga asana. But for me, it's never been like that. And it's really that yoga is a way of being, and it is also a way of moving. It's a way of breathing. It's a way of how you focus your attention, how you work with your mind, and how you work with your energy. So when I teach, I always teach with a theme, which is the attempt to connect to something higher. So the theme always has like a something that is universal, but it's most often it is inspired by something that I've lived and experienced, or sometimes a philosophy, something that a story, from a mythological story.
I do recall that. Yeah, I learned a lot about different stories in the retreats that we did.
Exactly.
I didn't really know about in history, so that's a very cool aspect of your instruction.
Yeah, and I've tried to teach without a theme, and I can't because I can't just teach asana, because I think that the body is really the entry point into those different aspects of ourselves. So when we move, we come to experience, oh, here I feel challenged. I might feel, oh, am I weak in this side of my body? Or then all of a sudden you feel like I am empowered. Now I can just do anything. And this is what the asana can bring when guided with a sense of connection to something higher. So that is always what I try to bring into the practice. And just to bind that with Rasa Yoga, because Rasa Yoga is the yoga school that I've been trained in.
Yes, let's
and
talk about that.
It's a kind of a new school, because it's only from 2015. But my teacher, Sienna Sherman, who is from the States, she lives in LA right now. She has been practicing yoga for over 30 years, and she studied with all the great masters, and she studied Iyengar yoga. She studied with Patabi Joyce, and she's been all over the place. And then in 2005, 6, there was this huge thing called Anusara Yoga.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard about
I haven't.
it, but it doesn't really matter. No, that's kind of, it was a build on, it was created by this guy called John Friend. He's also American. And he was a Iyengar yoga teacher. Iyengar is like very strict alignment based practice.
Okay.
So it's hatha yoga, but it's like with focused on being in the position with the right angle of the foot, the direct, the specific cues to how you hold yourself.
Okay.
It's very specific in that way. He took that, but it's kind of dry. So John Friend took that practice and then he created Anusara Yoga, which added the heart element.
Okay.
Or kind of, he wanted to spice it up with, so when you practice these different poses, you can evoke a specific quality of the heart, like courage or joy or whatever.
Okay.
And this is all very good. This is Anusara was a really, really cool style of yoga because it had both of the very concrete alignment cues, made it safe to practice. You build strength, and everybody is kind of learning how to use the body in an optimal way, and then adding this aspect of calling on your courage, let's say. Sienna, my teacher, was one of the master teachers in Anusara, and that whole school it was dismantled in 2010.
Okay.
I think it was around that time, 2010, 11. Yeah, and that's a long story. I don't want to go into it here. You can just look it up if you want to, because it's a scandal. It's a typical scandal.
Gotcha.
Somebody, yeah. And but Sienna goes then doesn't really know what she wants to do, because it doesn't want to be related to Anusara anymore, and it doesn't really exist in the States, but it actually exists in Europe.
Okay.
It's quite big in Germany. So she goes into like a contemplation, and she births this Rasa Yoga school. And I took part in her first teacher training in 2015. And Rasa Yoga it combines flow and form. So it's both Hatha Yoga, like the more static postures, and then it's vinyasa. And it's always in that there's a kind of you can go look at very clear physical cues and alignment stuff, and then at the same time there can be flow.
Okay.
And then it's always based in tantric philosophy, which is like the fundamental outlook on what is the world and how are we a part of the world, which sets kind of that there is one of the great teachings of Tantra, the tantric philosophy, is that your life is a gift. It's not a problem to be solved.
Whoa.
It's a gift to be embraced, not a problem to be solved. Yeah.
I just did like a mind blown emotion with my hands. That was pretty intense.
Oh, amazing.
I like that.
And that's kind of the outlook. And then we have mudras, hand gestures. We have mantras, which are like the songs that we sing, and the vibrational language of Sanskrit is very much a part of it. So we try to learn the right pronunciation. We try really to honor the roots of yoga in Rasa Yoga. There's meditation. There's also the pranayamas, and there is a huge focus on social justice. Using our yoga practice to uplift minorities.
Okay.
And then there's a great element of what is called shadow work, and that is for the teachers, and actually for everyone who practices Rasa Yoga, that you need to understand who you are and your conditioning, and we can call them shadows. So what are you conditioned by, and how does it show up in your life, and how can you work to release them and to cast light on the shadows? So it's kind of a huge huge palette that offers you a lot of stuff to use in your classes.
It sounds very
you don't
comprehensive.
Have to bring it is, and that's what I really love about it. It's and Sienna is just so skilled at she's created an amazing manual, and now I also teach Rasa Yoga teacher trainings, 200-hour trainings, and there is just, it really teaches you that yoga is so much more. So when people come, so often my students come when they're doing the training, and they say like, "Oh, I haven't been practicing." And then I ask them, "Well, did you breathe? Did you sit down for a minute to meditate?" "Well, yeah, I did that, but I didn't practice." And then we're like, "Oh, well, okay, yeah, I did actually practice. I just didn't do any
Yeah.
asana,
Yeah.
And
One
I was
little
mindful
aspect
in the
of the
way I
whole.
was.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's I love
So
that. I love Rasa Yoga.
it sounds amazing. And what I'm hearing you say when you talk about all the different maybe types of yoga is that maybe there's a spectrum when it comes to the ability to be spiritual in yoga practice, and that there are maybe some types of yoga that lend themselves, like Rasa Yoga, towards a more full mind, body, spirit connective practice, as opposed to
Absolutely.
maybe potentially Hatha Yoga, where you're just kind of sitting there. I think it's dependent on the teacher probably as well, but is that sort of an
Yeah.
accurate reflection?
Yeah. Well, what I think that we could say is that in Bikram yoga, for example, if the hot yoga, where there is
hot yoga.
pranayama,
Yeah.
and there are 26 postures, and then that's it.
And it's
Which
hot.
is, I mean, yeah, and it's hot, and you're sweating, which some people love, and there's so much. I mean, I really do not. I like to practice in the heat, but Bikram as a person is just awful. Let's put that to side. But I mean, there's a two aspects of the practice. So pranayama, the breath work, and then movement, asana. So yeah, and where is the meditation? Where is all the the ethical principles of how you conduct yourself? And so, and this is, I think that it's so sad that everybody nowadays wants to put yoga after whatever, goat yoga, beer yoga,
Oh,
you name it, yoga. It just kind of, I've said to myself, doesn't matter if the people go to those kind of practices, they will ultimately figure out that that's not the real thing, and they will move on to something more meaningful. But still, I'm kind of frustrated about it, because I don't think you can call everything is not yoga. It just isn't.
yeah. So it's really interesting when you think about that, because I've looked into those classes before, but not because of the yoga. I've looked into it because of the cute puppies or the baby
Oh,
goats,
yeah.
right? Like, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's an experience with cute animals,
Yeah.
so why not try it?
Yeah.
I've never actually done one, but when you see videos, it's very much like distracting. If that, like,
Yeah.
of course, little
Yeah.
animals
Yeah.
are
Yeah. Yeah.
adorable, they make you feel good, they give us dopamine in our heads,
Mm-hmm.
which is awesome, but it is
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you, like, it's movement around cute little animals that then get in your way and prevent you from really connecting to yourself, which is okay. It's a different kind of connection, I guess.
Absolutely. I think it's fine. I just don't like it being called yoga,
Yeah.
because yoga
Yep.
has a tradition, and it originates from somewhere. It's not just something we can plaster on anything because we want to draw attention to it. There
Yep.
are even studios here that they state in their kind of on their online, that you, when you read about it, well, you cannot chant. There is no incense, which doesn't really have anything to do with yoga, but and no mantras, of course, and we don't say om, that's
Oh, like
forbidden.
very strict
And
practices.
very strict, yeah, and very, try to kind of peel off everything that actually makes it yoga.
Yeah.
And then they call themselves a yoga studio, which I find, like, I just call it what it is. And I think that it will be fine. I mean, call it physical practice
I'm like
inspired by yoga.
stretching,
You know,
there's a
yeah,
variety.
stretching, yeah, get hot in the heat and move,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
or whatever. But yeah,
Hot yoga is just, I cannot breathe when I do hot yoga. It is just too much for me. I'm with you. So Hronn and I have done
yeah,
I've done a couple of her retreats, and we did do one in India, which was inherently a
heated
Yeah.
space, but it was
Exactly.
still a little bit different. We had some fans. It was like kind of indoor outdoor space. It was still a little bit different than a boxed in room with, 100 degree Fahrenheit or whatever the temperature is, kind of air being blown in there, which is really different.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my goodness. Hronn just knows so much. She's just such a smart person. I'm so excited that she's on this podcast and that you have all joined us today. Join us next week for a bit more into the ego, and we're going to talk about retreats, and it's going to be awesome. Can't wait to see you. Thank you for joining me on today's Spirituality What? Adventure. Subscribe, rate, review, and share this podcast. Visit us on Instagram at spirituality.what to interact, tell us what spirituality means to you, and even provide some of your own personal musings. Human on, you phenomenal spiritual beings.